Hello and welcome to our Profiles in Leadership series, a podcast series that explores leadership lessons with the top people in our field. Today, we are thrilled to have Scott Frank, who is President and CEO of AT&T Intellectual Property, as well as the Chair and President of the U.S. IP Alliance. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Daryl. Pleasure to be.
Let's start with your early education and childhood. You focused on engineering. You did management, business administration, and law. Talk about how that background shaped the way you look at life and leadership.
Well, it's gave me a lot of different perspectives on different parts of business. And, I will tell you first off, I went to Georgia Tech, got an electrical engineering degree. I will, suggest that most people coming out of high school don't know what they want to do when they grow up. And I was one of them. I was good in math. And, when I checked into, good schools that could apply math, engineering was an area, and Georgia Tech, one of the world's top engineering schools, was in Atlanta. So I went there. I had no idea what I was getting into, to be honest with you. I was not one of those who grew up wanting to be an engineer. And it was eye-opening. That first off, that experience at Georgia Tech, it is honestly, I think, the hardest thing I've ever done. And I've done some pretty hard things in my life, but graduating Georgia Tech, extremely hard. And I learned to be very resourceful, very, good at solving problems and working hard and being organized. And so that helped me, I think, in a lot of ways, prepare me for the rest of my life. Plus, I learned engineering, which was, again, something I knew very little about. And I think it's come in very handy, throughout my career. So having the basic electrical engineering, the Bachelor of Electrical Engineering degree from Georgia Tech was very helpful. As far as the other degrees, when I was at Georgia Tech, I did something I encourage a lot of students to do. And I tried some jobs out. And the first job I tried out, interestingly, was with AT&T. And it was as a co-op, and I was writing software. And I loved writing software in my Georgia Tech classes. But I found out during this co-op program, which I did for every other quarter for 2 years, I really didn't want to do it for a profession. And so it's interesting. One of the biggest things I've learned as I've grown up is try things. And you're going to find the things you like and the things you don't like. The things you don't like, that's some of the most important information you'll ever find. But find out what you like and what you don't like. And so I took that kind of off my list of things to do. I loved working for AT&T. Didn't want to do the software. I then, while I was at Georgia Tech, did a co-op with Nortel, and many people might remember Nortel. It was a big time telecom back in the day. But there I got to actually truly be electrical engineer, designing circuits for test sets. And I found it interesting. I liked it at Georgia Tech again. I liked the labs, but doing it for 2 years, every other quarter, I actually pretty much figured out fairly quickly into it. I didn't want to do this for a career. Now software is one thing, but when you're an electrical engineer for Georgia Tech and you don't want to do electrical engineering design, what are you going to do with your degree? And so I, getting to the MBA and the JD, the law degree, I started my MBA immediately after I graduated Georgia Tech. I knew I didn't want to be an engineer, but I thought maybe I could manage them. And so literally graduate in March, and in April, I am starting my MBA program at Georgia State University. And I'm still, and I actually got I was doing good enough at Nortel. I got a full-time offer. So I'm a full-time engineer at Nortel, going to school at night at Georgia State. And I actually had this premonition that I don't even want to be working with engineers. I like engineers as people, but I don't think I want to manage them. And so that's even scary. So I'm finding all these things I don't like. Is there anything that's going to keep me happy? And so someone mentioned law school, and I was like, that sounds interesting. My father was a lawyer, and so I knew about the law, but engineering degree, MBA, like law school, but why not? And I'm young and I have no real responsibility. So I found out that Georgia State has a JD MBA program. I can apply some of my MBA classes towards the law school. And I apply and I get in. And the next thing I'm taking law classes. And interestingly, I didn't know much about, I don't know hardly anything about patent law at that point. They don't tell you anything about that, or they didn't tell me anything about that when I was at Georgia Tech, and really didn't know any patent attorneys. And I literally just happened to be talking to actually my grandparents about this, and they said, "Have you thought about patent law?" And they were the ones who kind of connected the dots for me. And the next thing I know, I started checking the people I knew, and I met with my first ever patent attorney. And one of the most amazing things happened in that meeting. First off, the patent attorney gave me some ideas of what it was like to be a patent attorney. But one of the most amazing things that happened was one of my good friends from Georgia Tech happened to knock on the door while I was in this interview or this conversation, and walks in. His name, by the way, is Jeff Keister, and he was a patent agent for this lawyer. And I'm going to give the lawyer credit, Lou Isaf, who really played a big role in my life. Jeff Keister was doing what I had done at Georgia Tech. He was acting as a patent agent. He was going to school. He was actually going to law school at Georgia State a year ahead of me, and he was trying out the patent law. And I didn't even know patent agents exist. But Jeff tells me what he's doing, and we rekindle our friendship. Next thing I know, I am now trying another job. I leave Nortel and I become a patent agent for Troutman Sanders. It's a big firm in Atlanta. And I'm doing my JD MBA in the evenings, but working full time during the day, getting a real chance to see what patent attorneys do. Patent agents, the one area of law that you can practice without being an attorney. And guess what, Daryl, you're not gonna believe this. I found something I liked, and so what a moment in time. And so I liked it, and I liked using my engineering background. I didn't have to create the circuits or the technology, but I got to listen to the inventors and see what they came up with. That was exciting to see what they did. I liked learning about the future. One of the great things about patents, you get to see things 3, 5, 10 years before the rest of the world. I liked that. I liked actually using my law background to advocate, argue before the patent office to try to get them inventions, and so even licensing their intellectual property and selling it using my business background. So I actually found something I liked, and I was so happy. I even started to when I graduated with my JD MBA, started to do other types of intellectual property like trademarks and copyrights and litigation. And I thought I would be doing intellectual property law my entire career at Troutman Sanders. I'm going to stop there because that's pretty much my background that got me going. Any questions you want to
ask? That's a great and very comprehensive, and yet I should say concise summary of probably decades of formative assessment, formative years, I should say, in your life. Now, just out of curiosity, where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, but when I was age 6, we moved to Atlanta, Georgia, and I've lived here ever since. So I've lived here a long time.
They say the child is the father of the man. Do you agree with that?
Say that one more time.
The child is the father of the man.
Child is the father of the man.
So your background is very much, it creates a certain path dependency. And I was just thinking, as somebody coming into law school, who was an engineer with an MBA, and then looking at the law from a very practical engineering perspective and a very business focused perspective, I think really explains much of the innovations and the really novel way that you've conceived of the US IP Alliance, which we'll talk about.
I do believe that. And I do believe we're a product of all of our experiences. And I also don't believe things happen by accident. I think things happen for a reason. I also think it's our responsibility to pay attention and learn and connect the dots. I've often asked myself, why are, we'll talk about the IP alliances in a little bit. Why me? Why didn't this, everybody thinks it's a great idea and we're getting all these people joining, all these things happening, but why me? And I do think I am unique in my experiences. I'm not the only one with these types of experiences, but I don't think there's a lot of people that have the JD MBA engineering and also have the law firm, as we'll talk about in a moment, the corporate experience, and have maybe the connections to the community maybe that I've had.
Yeah, I absolutely want to talk about that too. In fact, let's talk about that now, since you mentioned the community. There's one thing that is very apparent from your profile, very striking, you give back to society a lot, whether it's the Swift School, whether it's the Mary Hall, Freedom House, whether it's most recently from your LinkedIn post, Peace, Harmony, Joy Alliance. So talk about these groups and what motivates you to pour your time and efforts into these organizations.
Yeah. Well, you hit on something, Daryl, and I will just tell you, at my core, I just love people, and I love working with people. I'm very blessed to work with a really talented, great set of people at AT&T Intellectual Property with these IP alliances. I get to work with another group of people, really amazing people. Get to, get just all these different nonprofits. I get to work with great people, but even more, when you work for a corporation, you're helping people, sure, but they're paying you, and they're your customers. When you work for nonprofits, I mean, you are truly doing it out of the goodness of your heart, and I truly love helping people and giving back. And I'm so blessed. So many people have helped me, and as I've gotten older, my goal every year is to try to help more people, and that's literally what's driven me. It's interesting. How I got into even anything nonprofit wise when I was at Troutman Sanders. My friend Jeff Keister again suggested that we get involved with the Georgia Bar. And that was really my first experience with community service. And he said, we'll meet people, might get some clients, but most importantly, we can help people. And, I'm, all about people, and I've always loved people. And so we started going to these meetings and, met a lot of great people. What's funny about this, when you really truly try to help people and you do it out of the goodness of your heart, it's amazing how it gives back. And it's not, I'm going to help this person, now this person owes me something. No, it's not like that at all. Just help as many people as you can, and you will be amazed how the universe helps you back with people. And let me
ask you this: how do you pick the organizations that you choose to help? Because these are, in a sense, quite distinct organizations. They're not all part of the same pool. How do you pick them? And I think that's something that many leaders at the field would be interested in understanding as well.
I'd like to say that I'm good at picking organizations. Honestly, I think they pick me, but it's also my belief that there's something bigger going on here. I'm a big believer in God, and in no particular faith. There's lots of, you can believe in God in however you want, but I believe God's constantly, showing you things and giving you opportunities, and it's our responsibility to pay attention. So I will just tell you, they've all come to me in different ways, and through different people. And I've just, what can I say? I will check into almost anybody who brings me an organization. I'll check into your organization, and I'll talk to just about anybody that says they have an opportunity, something for me to know about, or somebody for me to help. So that's just kind of the way I live my life, and that's kind of how I think I've stumbled across these things.
Well, make sure society gets the memo that they can knock on Scott Frank's door.
Yes, it's official. If you've got something, you can contact me on LinkedIn. I will respond. And I may or may not be able to meet with you depending on what your organization is, but I will take a look and take it seriously.
Thank you. Talk about the innovation pipeline that you started at BellSouth. And that's something that I think many people will find remarkable. And it's certainly also a good lesson in leadership.
Yep. Let me just tell you real briefly how I even got to BellSouth, just so people can appreciate how something bigger is going on for all of us. So, and how giving back to the community can make a real difference in your life. So we were talking about the Georgia Bar, and we talked about intellectual property at Troutman Sanders. I was loving my job. I thought I'd be there my whole career. And one day I get a call from a recruiter. I'm in my early 30s, and this recruiter says that BellSouth, a Fortune 10 company at that time, was starting up a subsidiary for intellectual property. IBM and others were making billions from licensing and selling intellectual property. BellSouth wanted to do the same. Now, the thing that the BellSouth didn't know or appreciate at that time was IBM had tens of thousands of patents. BellSouth had less than 50, but they wanted to start up a subsidiary. It was the heyday of the telecoms back in the late 90s, and they were looking for someone to run it. Well, I had never run a business, but the recruiter said a few things which were interesting to me. One, we know you have your telecom background with Nortel and AT&T. We know that you have got your MBA, so you know about business. And we also know that you're really good at intellectual property because you're an intellectual property attorney. But most importantly, and this is one of the big takeaways, the chief intellectual property at BellSouth is with the Georgia Bar IP section that you've been working with. And Sandy Evans was her name, has highly recommended you for this position. Now, in my early 30s, never run a business. I think there's no way, it's impossible I'll get this job. But the recruiter says they want to interview me. So I go for the interview. I tell my wife I'm going for this interview. It's impossible I get this job, but I'm curious. I'm always looking to meet people, always looking to learn. And interviews seem to go fine, but it's impossible. I've never run a business, Fortune 10 company, and they gave me the offer. Now, then I'm thinking they made a mistake. But here was the thing. I knew corporate jobs like this come along very rarely, and I knew that this would be a great experience, however it worked out. And I accepted it. And one thing I did is I told my law firm, my colleagues at Trotman Sanders, I said, don't give anybody my office. Don't give anybody my clients. You can all temporarily work on them, but permanently, I'm going to probably want them back, because in 60 to 90 days, they're going to realize they made a gigantic mistake, and I'm going to be back with you. And long story short, 25 years later, and I'm about to celebrate my 25-year anniversary, I'm still in the same job. So just another example of giving back to the community. You just never know where things are going to come from. And in this job, BellSouth was eventually bought by AT&T. I've gotten to keep this same position, but in this job, as Daryl was asking us earlier, the innovation pipeline tip, where did that come from? What was that all about? And that was really about democratizing ideas in big corporations. And anybody that works in a big corporation knows how hard it is to get an idea from the average employee to the executives. And we had an executive at that time. His name was John Donovan, and he had this idea of democratizing ideas, and he asked me to lead it. And we basically, built a software network, and we actually licensed it from another company. We built this this interface, and we basically gave anybody in the company an opportunity to submit an idea. And then it was this was a time, it's probably about 15 years ago, when we implemented initially to crowdsource. And so people could add onto the idea, which was really exciting. So you saw these ideas just really getting developed. Lots of people would have an idea, like a basic idea of what it would do, but they wouldn't know how to engineer it. So you see employees across the company coming together and collaborating. The other thing was others could vote on the ideas. And so the crowd would vote on the best ideas. And amazingly, the best ideas would get presented to our executives on a quarterly basis. And so my team would get the collaborators already, and we would get and then we would present to the executives, and we would basically have the executives decide which ones were the winners, and we give them money, and we would try to implement them, and many of them got implemented inside the corporation, and it was a tremendous experience. So the innovation pipeline, just a great way to bring the corporation together and get ideas from the average employee up to the top.
Thanks. So I want to talk to you about communication, because that is so critical to a successful leader. Now, you wrote not too long ago, the words are powerful. And also, I have it from good authority that you are a strong believer in handwritten notes. So talk a little bit about both of these things and how that feeds into your leadership style.
So yeah, words are interesting, right? Because we all have these vocabularies, and we all have ways of communicating. One of the best books I've ever read was The Four Agreements. And so if you haven't read it, I encourage you to read it. The Four Agreements, the first agreement is impeccable word. And it's what comes out of your mouth, and it's what what goes into your brain. All those words make difference. And I'll tell you, a very successful person who talks about this book a lot is a guy named Tom Brady, and he gives a lot of credit for why he's been successful his career. The amazing thing with words is you have a way, you have the ability, you have a way of impacting people every single day. You can say nice things, you can be supportive, you can be kind with your words, or you can say bad things and mean things and hurtful things. And it's amazing how you can, send them off with it feeling good, or you can send them off like feeling bad. And it's just amazing how we have that ability on people, every single one of us. And even when something bad is happening to you, you can be thoughtful with your words, or you can be mean about your words. So I just encourage everybody to be thoughtful. I also am a big believer in communication orally versus written. You did mention the notes, and we'll get back to that in a moment, but it's amazing how words can be misinterpreted. And so anybody who works with me and, has seen me, I don't like to write big emails. I usually are very short and sweet, but I would rather talk to you. And I can't tell you how many times I've seen emails that weren't intended to be mean, really make someone feel bad. And then obviously sometimes it is intended to be mean, and that has similar impact. But it's amazing when you talk to someone, even if you're upset. First off, don't be talking to someone when you're in an emotional state, but calm down. And if you can talk to somebody, it's amazing how you really truly want to have a good relationship with this person. You can work through things, but sending emails and texts can really hurt people. And then the words out of your mouth can really hurt people. In the same way, the right words can really uplift people. And so that, and then what you let into your head, you can let someone's words ruin your day, or you can say, hey, maybe that person's having a bad day. Maybe I should not take it personally. And that, by the way, that's another one of the 4 agreements. Don't take things personally. And I will just simply say that we have ability to interpret things and internalize things. We can't control the people, what they say, but we can control how we bring it in. And I just encourage people to be thinking about how they let words into their own heads and into their own bodies. And it's amazing how our mind controls our body, and somebody's words could actually make us sick or make us, cry or whatever it is. Try to think about what's really going on and try to make sure those words don't negatively impact you. So that's the words. The notes, what can I say? I do like to thank people. And I do send personal notes a lot, and I simply want to, try to connect as personally as possible. And I do know when I get those types of notes, how they make me feel. They're uplifting, and I hope that my notes do the same.
Thank you. Now, it's also critical that leaders build trust. And at AT&T, you have a term for this. You call it the T4 effort. Talk about that.
Yeah, so we have something in our organization called the Top Tier Trust Team, T4. And we've been doing this now, I don't know, maybe going on 10 years. Jeanette Knapp actually helped lead it for a number of years and did a great job moving it forward. The simple concept is, my belief in teams is if any team is truly going to be successful, it's based on relationships. And if you ask me, the foundation of any good relationship is trust. If you don't trust someone, it's going to be really hard to have a good relationship with them. And this comes from years of me playing sports when I was younger and just being a lot of different teams over time. If you've got good relationships with the people, it doesn't matter. The talent can be amazing. You can have all these great people on your team, but if they don't trust each other, there's not good relationships, it will probably underperform. So we have been on this journey for about a decade now to be the top tier trust team. It doesn't mean that our trust is perfect, but we want to be the most trusting team we can be. And we do a lot of exercises around different areas that we get picked out. Every year we seem to have something new that we're focusing in on. And we have a facilitator. Her name is Lisa Lai. She does a great job come up with these topics and helping us to drive it forward. And she'll present for like an hour, and then we'll have some smaller meetings with smaller groups to kind of work on it. And it's funny. It's not that it's like makes everybody 10 times truster just by going through a meeting or two, but I think over time, by making trust like a really important topic and going through these things, we give top tier trust awards every quarter at my town halls. We've been giving awards to people who exhibit this behavior by just making it something that is top of mind, that is important to the leadership of our organization. I think people over time have done things that are more trusting, and I think it's built better relationships, and we've been incredibly successful. And I really truly believe it's in part to this top tier trust team initiative that we've had for many years.
Thank you. A big part of leadership is also dealing with underperforming people or people who may be toxic members of the team. And you had said before, the secret of winning a lot of games is actually in working with the worst players and really building them up. What did you mean by that?
You've done your research, Daryl. So you hit on a couple of things: underperforming and then toxic. Toxic is a problem. And I will tell you, let's start with that. When we hire people in our organization, one of the biggest things that I look for is hiring somebody that I know or somebody I trust knows. I have some of my biggest mistakes have when I've been hired, what I call the three things: a piece of paper, an interview, and references. My experience is you really truly don't know who you're hiring when you do that. And so I like to hire people who either I know personally or someone I trust knows personally, to know if they've got the things that you can't teach, the soft skills. You know, they're good to work with, they're good team players, they're hard workers, they're honest, good integrity, they're smart. Those are the things that the soft skills you can't teach someone. And if someone's toxic, you know, that's a soft skill you don't want in your organization. So we really try hard to hire people who are not that, who have these soft skills I described, and I think we're pretty darn successful at that. The underperformers, you know, the quote that you referred to comes to my coaching a lot of youth sports. So I got 4 children, and I coached all of them in youth sports for many years, and we won a lot of championships and had a lot of really great teams. But more than the championships and the great teams was I always judge it: did the children and the families on my teams have a good experience? Did they want to come back next year? And did they get better? And so I think one of my secrets was, you know, it's easy to coach the best players, whether it's a youth sports or whether it's adults. It's easy to spend time with the best. But if you are committed to your team, whether it's youth sports, one of the great things about youth sports is you can't fire these children. They're on your team. They're going to be in the batting order. They're going to be on the basketball court. They're going to be in the football field. No matter what, you're going to have to put them in, and they're going to do something. In business, people say that underperformers, I'll fire them. But I like to actually commit myself to everybody, whether they're youth or they're adults. And if you commit to everybody, then you try to spend time with everybody, and it doesn't have to be equal. And so, yeah, I think one of my secrets to youth sports was I would spend more time with the underperformers, the ones that needed developing, and by the end of seasons, people who were in our leagues would be shocked how good my teams were doing. What they didn't necessarily understand was how some of the people who were drafted very late were really producing. And I'd like to believe that on my teams at AT&T and even the nonprofits, sometimes people who join who don't look like they have a lot to offer initially are actually big surprises, big positive surprises, because we spend time with them and we develop them. And I believe everybody has potential in them. And that's one of the greatest things as a leader is actually growing people and seeing that potential flourish.
Thank you. Here's another quote, since we're on the roll. Now, you said something that motivates one team member can actually demotivate another one. Now, this is a real pickle, I think, for many managers and leaders, because you want to do the right thing, but sometimes doing the right thing harms another group of people, or as you say, demotivates another group of people. How do you make that judgment call, and how do you find that balance?
Well, you know, I think Martin Luther King said this: there's never a wrong time to do the right thing. And so I'm always trying to do the right thing. I think if you do the right thing consistently, you know, it just makes life so simpler. But you're right. Sometimes people don't understand why you did this, and you know, think it's not fair. I will just simply say I try to be aware of those situations, and I try to have conversations with people and teams if there's potentially a misunderstanding. And you know, you can't have conversations every single time, but always try to do the right thing. And if you can, try to talk to people and try to explain, you know, your rationale. They may or may not always agree with you, but it's amazing how many times people just don't have all the information. And if you take the time, you can make things a lot better.
Thank you. Now, let's talk about intellectual property. After all, that is part of your company's name. One of the things that you had some press about recently was on AT&T IP's COVID waiver. Walk us through your thought process, whether you decided you wanted to be part of this, not part of this. Did you face any resistance internally? Did you get any flack externally? How did you deal with those situations?
Yeah, well, that's a great segue into doing the right thing. And, you know, we have this big, you know, patent portfolio. I'd say it's one of the most valuable in the world. We you know, make a lot of money off of it. And we are, after all, you know, owned by investors who are expecting us to maximize the value of our assets. And then your question is, how could you give it away for free? You know, let people use your inventions for free during COVID. And it was pretty simple. I mean, when this idea got presented to me, right away, I was like, this is the right thing to do. We're in a pandemic. We don't need to be profiting off of people that are trying to save, people on this planet. And there were others doing it. So we weren't the first. So it made it even easier, right? There were others doing it already. I wish I had been the first one with the idea, but there was, it was the right thing to do. And there was absolutely total support all the way up to the top of our company. And we made all of our patents related to COVID for free during the pandemic. And I'm proud of that.
So no resistance inside, no flack out from outside. Smooth sailing.
No resistance inside. And I have not heard any flack outside. Maybe there's some exist, but I'm unaware of it.
Okay. And not from your shareholders either.
Oh,
Well, I think that also goes to, if I might add, as an editor, no good communication, and people understood why you're doing it and for a good reason.
I think that's right. And I think, as a corporation, we do a lot to give back to the community. And, when you're giving back, that's time you're taking away from, running the business. At the end of the day, I think you give back to the community, you give back to society, you're going to get, like I talked about earlier, you're going to get back tenfold. You can't always connect all the dots and say exactly what you got back, but you got to do the right thing. And in that case, it was the right thing. And I think our shareholders appreciated that.
Our program today is called Building Alliances. And we'd always try to think of a podcast title that would capture the essence of the person that we are talking to. Now, you are Mr. Alliance because not only have you built up the Georgia IP Alliance, you started the US IP Alliance, the Global IP Alliance, and many state alliances around the country. Talk to us about what is going on with this brainchild of yours, and what impact would you like to see it make?
Well, first off, we talked about earlier, and you're the same way. I've gotten to know you, Daryl. We both love people, and we love to build alliances and connecting dots. And so it's been, really, truly an extraordinary experience. I will just simply say, we talked about giving back earlier, and how did this even come about? Going back about 20 years ago, we talked about Georgia State and Georgia Tech. Those two universities wanted to raise their intellectual property stature. I became the chair of both their intellectual property advisory boards as a way to give back. Didn't know what that was going to entail. Started brainstorming on things we could do. And over a period of about 15 years, we created about 50 programs, 50 programs, half for students and half for the community. And extraordinary. I got to work with hundreds of people in the community. Again, I love people and I love helping. I love working with people and I love helping people. And that was just extraordinary. It just outgrew those two universities. And in 2017, I was asked to take the 25 that were facing the community and form a nonprofit. I didn't want to form a nonprofit, never formed a nonprofit. I liked those administrators taking care of our programs, but it was one of the best things that ever happened. Again, I believe something bigger is going on because it taught me how to form nonprofits. And it also gave me an opportunity to do something else. When we formed the Georgia Intellectual Property Alliance, moved those 25 programs in, it gave us an opportunity to ask, do we want to just manage these 25 programs, maybe add a few, or do we want to do something bigger, something more special? And I convened a small team of people, and we started asking ourselves, is there something bigger, better we could do for Georgia intellectual property? And we came up with this idea. We looked around at other intellectual property nonprofits, the ones that represented lawyers and corporations and artists and inventors. We couldn't find any that represented citizens. And what's amazing for those who are not intellectual property experts, intellectual property is the key to this driving society forward. And you may ask, what does that mean? I mean, it is the future civilization depends on intellectual property. It probably depends on intellectual property more than anything. And it is because it's what's incensed tremendous investment of time, money, and resources. The COVID vaccine, the number one reason we got it as fast as we did was because of intellectual property. Corporations knew they could invest billions of dollars. They knew they'd get protection and could get big ROI. And that's what happened. And so intellectual property is so fundamental to our existence. And yet most citizens don't have the foggiest idea of what it is, the role it plays in their life, or what to do with it if they have a good idea. And so, so we in Georgia took those 25 programs and set out to try to make Georgia the intellectual property state. And we came up with 3 pillars. One was raise awareness. Every citizen should be aware of IP in Georgia, and we're making great progress. In fact, our governor for 5 years in a row now has proclaimed October Intellectual Property Month. That has really helped a lot. And we want to educate all students, K through 12, universities, and we've made great progress there. We want Georgia to be the state where people want to come and collaborate. And we have creators, protectors, and enablers that we are getting them together and getting things done in Georgia that we don't believe are going on in other parts of the country. And even diversity and inclusion. Everybody, doesn't matter what you look like, what you believe in, where you're from, come to Georgia, we would say. And we want to help you have a successful IP career. We also want to help you get your ideas into people's hands as fast as possible. If it's something people need, let's help you. So that's what we came up with in Georgia. And in 2018, we launched, and it was amazing, the success. We went around the state. We got the state of Georgia on our board. We got Georgia Chamber, Georgia Tech, Georgia Bio, Georgia Research Alliance. You went to our website now, GeorgiaIPAlliance.org. You see, we have about 100 board members representing pretty much the entire IP ecosystem. We also have about 50 sponsors. So we've raised a lot of money. And that was so good in 2018. In 2019, other states started to copy us. I guess they say copying this is a sincerest form of flattery. And so Illinois and Kentucky and started just moving around the country, New York and Texas and California and other states. Today, we have about 20 states that are represented by IP alliances. So 2020, just 2 years after launching the Georgia IP Alliance, we said we need to, the Georgia IP people said we need to help this country. And we actually, when we filed for the Georgia IP Alliance trademark, had actually filed for the US IP Alliance trademark, just in case one day we wanted to do something bigger. But we've always been about more than Georgians. We've been about humanity in Georgia. And so we launched the US IP Alliance. We built it under the Georgia IP Alliance, spun it off in 2020, and became the umbrella organization for all these states. Plus, we started to build alliances, as you like to talk about, with every national IP organization in our country that we could think of. And the US Patent and Trademark Office joined our board, US Copyright Office, AIPLA, and IPO, and the list goes on. It's been amazing. And we built what we call the IP Network of Networks, which is just a bunch of alliances. And then 2021, that was 2020 when US IP Alliance is launched. 2021, WIPO finds out about what we're doing. We start talking. And one of the things that we learned with the USPTO and other national IP organizations in the US was they have all these great programs and events. They have a hard time driving things local. There's so many people. It's so hard to get it to everybody. And they really were excited about our state IP alliances. And WIPO, similar, they have all these great programs and events, have a hard time driving local to all the people on this planet. And we talked, and they asked, could you do this for the world? And I will just simply say, and I want to give a shout out to Nikhil Marate, who's been by my side this whole journey. We talked about it, and we said, it's too important. It's the right thing. Let's try. We don't know how to do it, but we're going to give it our best. And so Representative Lisa Jorgensen from WIPO, a senior official there, joined our board of USIPA fourth quarter 2021 with the express purpose of launching the Global IP Alliance in 2022. And Daryl, you were there October of 2022, October 20th to be exact. We publicly launched the Global IP Alliance in Atlanta, Georgia. We have over 50 countries represented, over 250 people around the globe working on this. And, we simply are applying the same three pillars from Georgia across the United States, now across the planet, to help as many people as we can so that we have what we need in the future.
Scott, why do you think that this is taking place now? It's a great idea. Why didn't it take off earlier?
Yeah, I've asked myself that so many times, and I think it's because of the alliances. It is simply about somebody having the experience and having the connections. And so I think all my experiences have taught me that I could do something like this, and have given me confidence and courage. If it doesn't work, it could be embarrassing, right? But I've just I have the experience. And I think the other thing is in my role at AT&T Intellectual Property, and then with Georgia and in the US, I've met a lot of people, and I think I have credibility with a lot of people, and they trust me, and I just, for whatever reason, I'm able to do it. I don't think I'm the only person that could have done it. I think there's lots of other people that could have, and other organizations, but I'm one of the people that could have, and what am I going to say? I had the courage and the confidence to give it a try.
What do you say to skeptics that say, well, this is really another agenda for big pharma, or for those people that want to use IP rights to appropriate all this profits, just like big bad racket companies and so on? and you're promoting IP, but in effect, helping these people?
It's a great question, and one we get a lot. I will just simply say we are for humanity. We're for every single person on this planet. We're not for Big Pharma. We're not for corporate America. Yes, I work for AT&T, but if you look at what Georgia IP Alliance, US IP Alliance, now Global IP Alliance are doing, we're not taking any sides. We are truly trying to help humanity. And you can look at the board. There are people in the US IP Alliance board who are on both sides of things, and they actually have been in court cases, and they may not even like each other, but they are working together for the greater good of the United States. We're seeing some similar things with the Global IP Alliance. We don't advocate for IP legislation, by the way, because that creates sides. We only do things that bring people together. We advocate for IP for greater good. And again, we're trying to do good by everybody. So proof will be in the pudding. We're still relatively new, but I think there are plenty of examples that show that we are literally about every human being on this planet and not trying to play favorites.
Thanks, Scott. Now, family is such an important part of every leader's life, but often they're not talked about. Talk about the role that your family has played in your career along the way and how it shaped your leadership views.
Yeah, well, thanks for bringing up my family. For me, and I would encourage everybody, family is number one after God. And, everything, I'm always thinking, is this something my family would be proud of? And I will tell you, my parents, I think they taught me a lot about hard work and gave me a lot of confidence. I think it's also they showed me how family can really create such a great foundation for success. And I think people that work with me would say, I try my best at AT&T Intellectual Property to try to make us feel like a family. These IP alliances try to do the same. All the nonprofits, the sports teams, if you can be a family, as opposed to just person A who does that and person B who does that. It's amazing how families can be tight knit and really truly create magic. The other thing I like to say about family is my family. I'm married to Marie, just a wonderful wife, and so she supports me, and it's great to have that because everything's not easy, and it's great to have someone like that by your side. She encourages me and helps me figure out things. Also, I've got 4 children: Dennis, Danielle, David, and Diana. I will tell you, they've got a lot of great ideas. They're all in their 20s now, and they help me to figure things out, encourage me. But even more importantly, I think my entire family has helped me to understand other people better. It's amazing how your family, I have 4 kids, they're all very different, and I've learned so much from each of them. And my wife is the same. It's just amazing how you can learn so much about family when you spend so much time with these people. And then the other thing is just having balance and making sure that you make your family your priority. Work. I don't call it a job. I enjoy my work in the nonprofits, but my family, that's the best times. And I just, really truly try to make as much time for them as possible, especially on the weekends and over the holidays.
So would you say that them growing up, you've been there at their milestones and you've had your presence in their lives, despite all the wonderful things that you're doing in your career?
Say that one more time.
Your children, as they were growing up, that despite all the wonderful things you've been doing in your career, you were able to be there with them at the milestones in their lives. Yeah,
so that was something I've always prioritized, trying to be there for all their milestone events, tried to be there for every sports game and every dance and every musical performance. I have tried to be there for every milestone event, graduations and birthdays and the like. It's not easy, especially when you're in business. I just encourage people, families first, and again, hopefully you have something you believe in that's even bigger than family, but family to me is more important than any job. And it's amazing when you have a wonderful family that it just makes things so much more enjoyable. And at that event in October 20th, my family was there, and that honestly, having my whole family, my kids coming back from college for that night, that was probably as big a thing for me as any, just having my family together with me to celebrate such a great achievement.
And it was a great achievement. Now, milestones, and this is the final question, Scott. What should our viewers expect from Scott Frank for his next milestone?
Well, some people joke that it's going to be the intergalactic IP alliance. But I think what the next milestone is simply going to be, more success with these intellectual property alliances. And that's, and even you mentioned the Peace, Harmony, and Joy Alliance. I simply want to help more people on this planet. And the Swift School is another one. There's so many people that that I think I can help, and I want to simply scale up all these and truly deliver the value to as many people in all these different areas as possible. I think I've got these platforms, I've got these experience, I've got talented people around me. Question is, can we simply take this and impact hundreds, thousands, millions, maybe billions of people's lives in a positive manner? So I think that to me is going to be the real achievement. It's, I've got some great things I'm working with, some great people I'm working with, but I truly want to help make a significant impact on this planet before it's all said and done. And peace, harmony, and joy, by the way, we didn't touch on that, but it's about peace on earth. And that's a big thing, right? But we have an organization. I'm using my experience connecting IP people around the world, applying that out to peace on earth. And we have organizations all around the world that are joining us. And by the way, if you're going to have peace on earth, it starts with each one of us. We got to have peace in ourselves. If you cannot have peace, if you don't have peace in yourself, it's hard to have peace with people close to you. Obviously, hard to have peace with people around the world. And so we're helping people to feel more peaceful and harmonious and joyful with themselves, so that they can spread it with people close to them. Ultimately, that ripple effect, and truly transform this planet. It ain't going to be governments with treaties. It's not going to be corporations and religious groups. It's going to be people like you and me, Daryl, who literally, I think, transform this planet and make it peaceful, harmonious, joyful, and also get the intellectual property in everybody's hands that need it.
Scott Frank, President and CEO, AT&T IP, Chair and President, US IP Alliance, husband, father, and all-round extraordinary in giving back to society. It's been a real privilege to sit down with you this afternoon for the chat on our Profiles and Leadership series. Thank you very much.
Daryl, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for the opportunity.